387 BC, 3508 AM. Over 3 years after the initial sack of Rome by the Celts in 391 BC, Marcus led a Roman army and drove the Senones back into the northern areas of Italy. This is the Roman version. Some historians believe that the Gauls departed as conquerors and the account of the Roman army was a fiction to save national face. What is certain is that the Senones were not finished, and nor did the Romans slaughter Brennus's men. The Celts stayed in Italy for almost a century afterward, remaining a constant threat. This was the year 1400, 700 times 2, since the birth of Jacob, Israel, in 1787 BC, and 868 years, 434 times 2, after the founding of the Danaan Israelite dynasty of Mycenae in 1255 BC. 540 years, half of 1080, after Jerusalem was sacked by the Egyptians in 927 BC. As the sack of Rome by the Gauls in 391 BC was 864 years, foundation of time number, after the Danaan dynasty was founded, 1255 BC, at Mycenae, which was an ancient Israelite line. This year of 387 BC counts down 864 years to the fall of Rome in 476 AD by the Germans, who were post-captivity descendants of Israel. Also in this year, militant Sparta forces the Hellenic states into a settlement with Persia, known as the Peace of Antalcidas, which ceded the Greek cities of Asia Minor to Persia, a humiliating affair. The loss of Ionian freedom gave rise to serious deliberations concerning a pan-Hellenic alliance against Persia. That this occurred in this year is supported in the calendrics, for the Ionian states were founded by migrating Israelites. Plato founded his famous academy, the first of its kind, a philosophical and scientific school that would survive over 900 years. Plato was of great strength of character, a brilliant orator, a painter, a poet, cosmologist, historian, grammarian, scientist, and had been a popular wrestler at the Pythian Games, fearless debater, and his works continue today, having inspired thousands of authors and later philosophers. 1. History and the Quotations. 2. The Philosopher and the Druids. 3. Tacitus, Annals of Imperial Rome. Dialogues of Plato. 5. The Story of Astrology. 384 BC, 3511 AM. Aristotle is born in the Macedonian town of Stagira. Aside from Plato, his mentor and teacher, he was the most famous of all Greek philosophers, author of many very sophisticated books on philosophy, geography, and Western thought. Aristotle was at odds with many of Plato's teachings and perspectives, and was also the teacher of the famous Alexander of Macedon. 380 BC, 3515 AM. Approximate date for when Babylonian astronomer Kidinu calculated the lunar month to within 1 second of its true length. 1. Egypt, Greece and Rome. 372 BC, 3523 AM. A king of Cyprus besieged the city of New Tyre, the centre of Phoenician government and culture. Exactly 200 years prior, Nebuchadnezzar II quit the siege, unable to take the well-fortified island that was built in 1230 BC. For 858 years, the city of New Tyre had been free of any successful attack, but in this year of 372 BC, the king of Cyprus took New Tyre, but did not occupy it long at all. Very little is known of this defeat, but Cyprus was a main gateway through which Israelite fleets had passed through over 9 centuries. This begins a 40-year countdown to 332 BC, when Alexander of Macedon would successfully destroy New Tyre. 1. Alexander the Great. 371 BC, 3524 AM. A comet appeared, and according to Ephorus of Syme, who witnessed it, the comet split into 2 comets. The Spartans attacked Thebes in Boeotia, and at the Battle of Leuctra, the Theban soldiers called the Sacred Band, elite warriors, defeated the Spartans. This win shocked the Greek world, for until this battle it was held that the Spartans were unconquerable. This was 110 years after the Spartans under Leonidas fought the Persians at the pass of Thermopylae, and 108 years after 479 BC when the Spartans, Thebans and Greeks all fought and defeated the Persians at the Battle of Plataea. This was 560 years, 70 times 8, after Israel and Judah split into two kingdoms in 931 BC, and 868 years, 434 times 2, after the start of the Trojan War in 1239 BC, and 350 years, 7 jubilees of 50 years each, after the last of the 10 tribes were deported from Israel by the Assyrians in 721 BC. 1. Introduction to Comets. 367 BC, 35:28 AM. The Peloponnesian League of Greek states is dissolved, paving the way for Macedonian supremacy. This is a very significant year calendarically, as the 3672nd year of orbital chronology. This is exactly half of the entire 7344 years, 2448 times 3, from the start of the Anunnaki chronology in 5239 BC to the return of the chief cornerstone in 2106 AD to destroy the Anunnaki. This period of 7344 years is 2448 times 3, the year 2448 being the year of the Exodus in 1447 BC, and this year is 2448 Anno Pyramid. It is also 1872 years after the flood, or 144 times 13. The Great Pyramid was finished in 2815 BC, or 1080 Annus Mundi, and this year is 1080 years after Exodus. As this relates to the Peloponnesian League, it is no mystery why this is 888 years, golden proportion number, after the founding of the Danaan dynasty of Mycene in the Peloponnesus, an Israelite dynasty in 1255 BC. In this same year, Plato accepts Aristotle as his student. 361 BC, 35:34 AM. 30 years after the Gallic invasion of Rome and sack of the city, the Romans and Celts engaged in a battle. An enormous Gaul challenged the Roman army under the heroic code to single combat over the control of a bridge near a Gaulish town. The Romans feared these Celts because of their enormous bodies, but Titus Manlius answered the call, and to the amazement of both armies, the smaller man stuck his sword into the huge Celt's groin around his shield, felling him. Honouring the code, the Gauls ceded the bridge over to the Romans. This was exactly 360 years after the last of the 10 tribes were carried away into Assyrian captivity in 721 BC, where the Israelites became the Celts. 1. The Philosopher and the Druid.